Well, I'm very excited today to have Dr. Melissa Meyer and Dr. Jeremy. No, Jeremy, you're not a doctor, but you are
No.
the lead technician for the Softwave. Jeremy Bowman, you guys are outside of Dallas, Fort Worth, and I want to thank you both for coming on today and giving me an opportunity to really follow up, right? So, Melissa, the story starts with you and I back in July, and why don't you kind of explain how you reached out to me?
So back in April, I purchased a stemwave, and because I was starting a new practice, I had practiced for 18 years, and then I took a break for a while. So I was essentially starting a new practice. I didn't have a lot of patients to start using it on right away, but they convinced me to get it now, and I'd be ready once I had the patients, I would know exactly how to use it. And so it kind of sat there for maybe about a month and a half before I really used it. So when I started using it, I had gone to their training, but in the training, we didn't actually get to feel what it felt like. We just got to see it, not experience it.
And by the
And
way,
so,
your training is you flew out to
yes,
an area, either Fargo or Pittsburgh, correct?
I flew to Pittsburgh,
Okay.
yes.
And you
And
trained,
And the training was like just a one day. It wasn't even, it was actually probably 4 hours. And it really could have been done over Zoom because there was no hands-on anything. So there's really no reason for me to have to fly to Pittsburgh for that. But I did, and because that's what they required, so I did it. And so I never experienced how it felt. So when I started using it on, first I started using it on family members and people I know who have injuries. And I'm like, they should feel it. And they're like, I don't feel anything. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Like, so I contacted them and long story, but going back and forth, I started using it on patients because they assured me that it was working, even though, I wasn't confident that it was. And I had probably about 4 or 5 patients who are just like, I don't feel anything. And I turned the machine all the way up and they weren't feeling anything. I'm like, this can't be right. So going back and forth, they sent me out new handpiece cable, new head, new electrodes, um, and they even at one point took the whole machine back and sent me a loaner and nothing. Like it just, so we're going
either
through
one
this.
wasn't working.
The loaner worked, but not consistently. Because what happened was, I don't know if the electrodes they sent me were brand new or not, but it's random. Like when you put in an electrode, it may or may not work. And so there's a lot of anxiety, like, is this one going to work? And I don't want to go into the office and not know, is it going to work? I do have a story about a patient who we were treating her for neuropathy, and we went to start using it on her, and she was the first patient of the day, and the machine was not making the right noise. And I knew right away it was not working. So we went ahead and moved her over to the vibration plate just to buy some time because we have a small office. So right in front of her, I had to go through 8 electrodes to find one that worked. And the thing is with stem wave, it's not like software wave where you just push a button and it fills up. And I had to, in front of her, empty the head, fill it back up, tap it, check for air bubbles, try again, and then 8 times. So, but she was just talking away to Jeremy, so she was distracted, which was good. But you can't do that. You never know. I never know. And like with the solution, you have to make it weekly because after about a week, it has no more, it doesn't work anymore. Just a lot of problems with stem wave, and it would occasionally work, but when you don't know when you're going to get like when all the stars are going to align. You have a good electrode, the head's not leaking because I would get air bubbles. Like I would do 400 pulses and there'd be a massive air bubble. And so then I got new heads and then sometimes like those would then they would work, but then the electrode wasn't working and then the solution wasn't right.
I
And
thought was what was wild was that you weren't taught in training day how to flush that system out at the end of the day. That
no,
wasn't until you started having problems that they started giving you this checklist of what you needed to do and how to process.
right. And it's you know, the instructions actually changed over time. They said, maybe once a week you should empty out the head, uh, and let everything dry out. But then when I was having problems, they're like, well, are you emptying it every night? And I was like, no, I was never told to. They're like, oh, you really should. And rinse everything off with distilled water and let it lay out. So every morning when you go back in there, you have to go through the process of filling up the head, putting in the electrode, tapping it, make sure there's no air bubbles, and then 90% of the time there'll be an air bubble. So then you have to empty it or top it off, and then eventually you get it right. And sometimes even after there's no air bubbles, 400, 500 pulses, you have an air bubble. So it's like the consistency, but when it works, I mean, I guess it works, but for me, not knowing if it's going to work 100% of the time, I mean, I guess maybe nothing's 100%, but when you have a problem, if you have a backup to fix the problem, but you don't know if that backup's even going to work. That's the problem.
Right. And the thing that I thought was wild is like you're launching a new clinic, right? Consistency is key. And you're, giving treatment plans and you're having patients pay money. And for it not to deliver, that also means you're not delivering the goods to your patient. And that's kind of a formula for disaster. Hence, we get together July. By August, I think we had you guys a Softwave device. Jeremy, I flew out. I got to train you both, and you have a great little setup. I love it. And what did you notice about once we made that switch and you put Softwave in? Jeremy, I'll let you take it from there.
I think the big thing and what I look at it from is more, I look at it from a clinical perspective, but less more as that and more as from a business perspective, was immediately the anxiety or wondering whether this thing's going to work or not, or that, because if you have a device and you're not sure if it works, it's amazing how many aspects of the business it affects. It affects your marketing. It affects you, how you talk to your patients. It affects every aspect because it directly affects your confidence in what you're doing. And when you go into the office every day and you have that anxiety and you're not sure whether it's going to work or not, it's an awful feeling. I mean, you're constantly going in with uncertainty. And uncertainty is not a fun way to run a business at all. It's torture. And so what happens, and then you go in there and it's like a high school science experiment gone bad. I mean, that's what it feels like when you walk in there. You got all these moving parts. There's so much margin for error, so many different things that can go wrong. And it's like to diagnose it took us literally 2.5 months to figure out with them, like what the problem is. And like, there's a lot of things that just didn't pass the smell test. But the difference was immediately, it was like plug and play. You plug it in, you fill it up, it works
With Softwave.
with Softwave.
And
So,
I got to remind our listeners that, we've been around 20 years. We
right.
have spent over $25 million in research and development. We have over 240 peer-reviewed studies from 98 different universities globally. I mean, we're not some one-hit wonder. And I think this takes me to the point where, Dr. Melissa, you had friends and other colleagues who had Softwave, and you were kind of looking, doing the research. Tell me how you kind of what made you go with stemwave initially? Was it because it was less money or?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to check out Softwave prior to I talked to Stemwave first, and they kind of, I guess the best way to say it is they sucked me in. And so they made all the promises, and with their 60-day money back guarantee, and there's a lot of conditions you have to fulfill to get that. But for me, what was bad is I didn't start using it till about 45 days in. I didn't have that first, 45 days was sort of wasted because my practice wasn't open yet. And but they got to me quickly, um, promising a bunch of things. And um, you know, what I found out after the fact is the machine I did get had 58,000 pulses on it when I received it.
And why is
And
that number
so
important? So it wasn't a new one, right? I mean, they
No.
basically
they assured me that it was new. They said, with the testing that the company does before they send it to us, they probably forgot to reset it. His words. And I said, oh, so like if I buy a car, they can drive it and reset the odometer?
that's
Like
illegal.
that doesn't make sense to me. Like you're gonna do all these pulses and then 50, it's not like 2,000 pulses. Or 5,000. It was 58,000. And so then when I had all the problems and I sent the machine back, they put another 50,000 plus pulses on it. So now I have a machine that has over 100,000, 110,000 pulses on it. And
that
essentially
you didn't
I
Right.
had
drive.
never
We
used it.
paid retail price for a brand new one.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just a lot
You
about
paid
it.
retail. I can see if, and again, one of the things we're noticing, this is from other doctors, is what is the value of a used software or used softwave and a used Modus F stem wave? I mean, we're seeing that the stem wave loses 38% of its value driving off that lot. Where, ours is almost an appreciating asset. This is German engineered, designed, assembled. It's really been fun to work with our German counterparts because they have this simple concept. It's the less is more, right? And it's just got a great design. It's very easy. It's one button to turn on at the beginning of the day. It's one button to drain at the end of the day, and that's it. And I think, Dr. Melissa, you made one of the best statements when I was there. You said, I never want to see another wrench the rest of my life.
I did say that.
So I'm going to go back. Let's focus on, so since August, you've had it for a few months. What what has been your experience over the last 4 months, 5 months? Any great patient success stories? Anything you'd like to share? Have you had any problems? And if so, how is our customer service?
Yeah. So I do have one. I mean, I have several, but one that comes to mind is this one of my patients. Her name is Linda, and she has been in pain for 20 years. She's already had a rhizotomy. She can't sit for very long. She can't stand for very long, and so after one session of Softwave,
Thank you.
she was like came back to me in tears, so thankful. She's like, "You're such a blessing. I'm so thankful I found you." She said, "I have not felt this good in over 20 years." And she went, because we only went a few days before her next one. She goes, "But this never happened." And so she did go through 8 sessions. And by the end of it, she said that, she's super happy, but there's days where she still gets a little bit of pain, but she says, when I do, the pain is nothing like it was. It's like maybe a 2 instead of an 8. And but her biggest thing is when she does, it doesn't last very long. She's like maybe 20 minutes. And she said that's never happened ever in the last 20 years. And she's very happy, and she wants to continue getting sessions kind of like on a maintenance as needed if she, needs to. But but yeah, and then we have had a couple issues. Like we had one of the heads started to leak. It was like a pinhole leak, or the membranes. And so, but that's apparently an easy fix. You just put a new membrane on and you're good to go a couple minutes later. And I think we had some error code come up, but it was taken care of. Like, whatever was necessary was overnighted back to us. So I think what it was is because we had that leak, the cartridge fluid
Lost
got
some
too
water.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll put my service team against anybody in the world because they are very efficient. And, we have over 2,000 devices just in North America. Everyone has two probes. That's 4,000 probes that are out there. So, yes, but we want to be on top of it. And we want to make sure we're getting things corrected on a timely basis.
Yeah.
Because if you're shut down, you're not seeing patients, you're not generating, you're not getting your patients well, and you're not generating income. Um,
Yeah, it was a very different experience dealing with Softwave customer service than stemwave because it's like I would just with them, it was just like, well, we're so sorry, but we got to go through this checklist of what could be wrong before we're going to send you anything. With you guys, it was just like done, overnighted what we needed, and we actually had a backup. It's not like we were ever left without being able to use the device. And
mhm.
with the stem wave, we could not use the device for weeks on a time. We had to cancel whole days worth of patients.
You said at one point it had worked maybe 8 days in the first 3 months you had it.
Yeah, approximately something
I
like
mean,
that. Yeah.
it worked sometime during the day on those 8 days. It didn't mean it worked the whole day.
Hey, Jeremy, I'm excited because you're also going to become a national trainer. I knew one thing when I came to your clinic in your office that you guys know how to take care of people and you do it in an efficient and effective manner. And Jeremy, I was, really impressed with you as a technician and really being the guy in the trenches working with a lot of patients. Plus, you've been on calls and you've helped other doctors who are, because doctors they like, oh, they want to get on the shockwave bus and they're going to go do some research. So they get on Google and they Google, shockwave or whatever, and the first paid ads are usually from different companies. And it seems like to do your due diligence, you should not just get on the call with a Softwave or I mean a Shockwave salesperson, right? You need to really look over it. But I know you spoke to a couple people who were on the fence, weren't sure they were going. Maybe you could summarize in a few minutes and tell me what really what was the deciding factor? What have you said to these other doctors to help get them in the right mind?
Yeah, it was really simple. I mean, I just told them the truth. I just told them exactly what our experience has been. And so we've got a soft wave device in one office, a stem wave in another office. So some days of the week we're going to the stem wave office, other days we're going to soft wave. So every week and every day I get to pay attention to how I feel going to the different offices. And I'm saying when we're going into the soft wave office, everything's nice. There's not anxiety, there's not a lot of work. Every time we go into the stem wave office, it's always a nightmare to get prepared. We're not sure if it's going to work right. We were taking the soft wave back and forth between the offices, but that's a lot of things can happen. It can be wear and tear on the device. And so we've stopped doing that. But basically, I just shared with them what I wish someone could have told us before we got the stem wave. And that is just the experience between the two. Both of them, when they're working, are effective and they work. Okay. I mean, let's give it some credit over there with stem wave. I mean, when it's working, it works. The problem is you cannot rely and you don't know when it is going to work and when it's not. And to run a business, I don't even think they should be putting that out to market in my opinion.
Well, I mean that's a great opinion. The other thing I noticed, and I got to use your Modus F stem wave,
Yeah,
and it was like I always say it's like the quarter. If you could see that, that's our diaphragm, and
correct.
we can actually fit 4 quarters in the treatment area that we're utilizing. And it was painful. So it's like it's either treating this, right? And how long it takes to do a whole hand, or treating with the bottom of that water bottle.
Right.
You're finishing in 2/3 less time. And we're seeing this with data biologics. This is something I would highly recommend that you also get involved in this third-party national data collection, and it's called data biologics. And you can have your patients fill out VAS and pain scores before they start treatment and where they're at along the way. And we have, dozens of clinics now we're compiling this data, and they can look at, soft wave versus a focused shock wave or a radial or electromagnetic and piezo. And what the data is showing, which I love, is that we're getting patients better faster. with less visits, less pulses, and their overall pain score goes down quicker.
Well,
So
it's exciting. It's something you can get behind and have confidence in. And that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, you can tell just from my energy level talking about the two device, and I notice it. And the people that I talk to over the phone, they can feel it. They feel that it's authentic. They want to talk to someone that's tried both and give them an honest assessment of what it was like in a clinical setting and in a business setting. And that's all I'm able to do. I'm able to say, look, we have both. So I'm able to tell with you exactly what our experience has been with the device, with the company, with customer service, and then what it's been like over here. And once I just lay it out for them, like I just talked to a guy and he was like, man, like, cause he was leaning towards stemwave. Like
mhm.
he pretty much had made his mind up. He was going to go with stemwave. We had a 10-minute conversation and he said, man, thank you. I have spent so much time talking to sales reps on both ends. And this has been the most valuable 10 minutes in this entire time. Like he's like, he knew exactly what to do at that point.
Yep.
It was just, it's clear. So I just simply tell them exactly what's happened, what our experience has been.
I
I
mean,
mean,
that's all you can do. And, like you said, Dr. Melissa, not every device is perfect. I mean, this is a new technology that's been around for over 20, 30 years, but, we're utilizing it in a new way. And I'm just grateful that we have you guys on our team, that you can give an honest opinion on both. And I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day today. And just want to thank you both. Much appreciated.
thank
Thank you.